Auto-generated mobs. Now, over the last week of Void Edge of Existence development, there's been a lot of different types of updates and patches throughout the given week. So without further ado, let us begin. Starting off with bugs. Undead sword overlap is now resolved, therefore they will not be able to hit you and you will fall off of the actual map. This was caused by the sword in which they actually are using, and this was colliding with the skeletal mesh of the main character, causing the character whence hit to be flung across the room or off of the edge of the map. This has now been resolved. Undead hitboxes are now realigned for hit detection, and also Valindra's hitbox has been updated in order to actually hit her more effectively, along with door interaction boxes have been slightly adjusted to be made bigger in order for everyone to be able to click said doors and open them with one button press. Music has been adapted to music auto stop. This is now non-fading out music, and the music that should be playing shall auto stop if a character has left combat or threat has decreased to 0, given that be a boss or trash mobs for combat or boss music. Along with that, when it comes towards development, shadow damage scaling has now been applied. Shadow damage now scales like crit, so therefore if you are using an ability such as Retribution, Shadow Blast, also Dark Gambit, goes off of your base shadow damage, causing you to have a random amount between 0 and the shadow damage cap, which is set by your character on your skill power up. I.e., if you have 100 shadow damage, then your Retribution will be your physical damage plus a random damage count from either 0 to 100 for your shadow damage. Along with that, the boss health and boss damage has now been adjusted when it comes towards battles. This has now been slightly adapted for most of the encounters when you actually are playing the run through. Along with that, mob health has been adjusted so it is slightly increased and decreased where it needs be. Also, with that in mind, other developments are key bindings. You are also now able to key bind your character when it comes towards using your abilities. This can also be done with movement, but i.e. there is a slight warning when you come toward key binding your movement, as this will erase all movement buttons for you for your character. When it comes towards abilities, inventory, and also your skill up UI, you can realign those to suit your entire needs and change them accordingly to fit your play style. As well as that, the introduction is now allowed to be skippable, as if you are not wanting to watch the cinematic or the introduction, you are more than welcome to skip ahead and just get into the action of the game. As well as that, the wrapping text on action buttons has now been set to clipping. This means that if you have your soul rend ability, for instance, key bound towards your mouse, this means that it will actually wrap around the text and there should be no overlap. Moving on towards content. Content I'm really happy about for today, and that is the mob constructors. This is the self-auto-generated mobs. In essence, this has been applied to imps and undead and will go further into the future with other different types of mobs and or bosses. This mob constructor function now on load of the game will auto-generate health stats, i.e. attack damage, mob's height, and also attack abilities. This means that the mobs are different every single time. This goes with the skins of the actual creature, so no one character or mob should be the same. This means that this gives more variations of the types of mobs that you're actually facing against, as some could have low attack damage but high health, and others could be vice versa, along with different types of skins and also attack abilities. The attack abilities have been updated, for which they pick a random ability to use on your character and you must be able to counter that or keep your wits about you. I kind of like this ability where I don't know what type of ability that they will be throwing at you next when you come into contact with them. I'm intending on applying this towards Gordros and more of the bosses, so to give a random variation on what's actually going to be occurring when it comes towards fighting encounters. The entire aim is to completely make every encounter unique and fresh for the user and or player. This means that I want every time you go into a level or a game instance that the encounters are fresh and you have different types of mobs that you're actually facing against. This will definitely scale over time as we apply more and more different variations towards mobs and or abilities. This goes along with the scoring system, as now score is a part towards the game. Every time you go through the game and you actually kill bosses, mobs, mobs and or objectives, this will provide you with a level of score. You can also have reduced score. For instance, if you die, this will reduce it by around about minus 70 score, and the idea is that once you actually complete your level, you will gain a higher score which will be shown on the main menu. However, I will actually be implementing this into the escape function, where you press the escape button to go and change all of your key bindings, UI and all that stuff. It will show for you as well what your highest score is, as well as all of that. You can find your score at the bottom left hand side of the UI, and you can track your progress throughout each level state. Along with that, bonus objectives have been implemented into the game, where you jump into each and every zone. You will then be able to be given bonus objectives which you are then able to use. This means that when you're actually running through the game, you get additional objectives that you can do throughout your given run and gain more score in that sense. These ones are also auto-generated, and while more objectives come into play, this will become more and more random than when you play through the game. Along with that, introduction cinematic camera has been adjusted towards content of the introduction. This is to give a bit more of a level of immersive feel at the beginning of the game, and thus I would highly recommend checking it out. As well as that, the last piece of content that's been added towards the game is in the core, which is the main central hub of the initial game. To the left of your character, as you zoned in at the beginning of the game, there is now 3 vendors, which is the item destroy vendor, consumables vendor, and also the base items vendor. These ones can be traded with the soul fragments that you actually gain from running each and every progression level, and can give you a baseline of different types of items and or consumables to help you go through the game as a whole. More and more items will be applied towards you over the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned to that. Other than that, guys, this has been a really fun week for development, and I plan on making this go even further. Other than that, have a lovely rest of the day, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be soon.